Welcome back. It is now time for What's Hot, where we talk about the stories that have everybody talking.
And today we are joined by Rochelle Fritsch from MilwaukeeMoms.com, and Jeff Wagner is back. Our first topic, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark not happy with a Milwaukee County supervisor who questioned his decision to spend $75,000 on new guns for deputies. In a news release, the sheriff used words like idiotic, stupid, and referred to the supervisor as having a pudgy rear end. Clark actually used the three-letter word there.
And that word would be what, Courtney?
I'm not saying that on TV.
Jeff, feel free.
So, is this too much on the sheriff's part? Even if he was justified in the spending, did this go overboard?
Well, I think first of all, he was justified in the spending. This was a purchase that was actually approved last year. They ended up buying 500 and some of these Glock firearms. Typically, they cost about $400 to $500. Because they traded in all the guns and they bought them in bulk, they got them for about $139.
Okay, but let's talk about the response.
Well, what's John Weishin doing going after David Clark?
But let's talk about the response.
Yeah,
you're always going to have people who disagree with what you're doing and who will verbally put that out there.
Yeah.
So shouldn't maybe he have taken a higher road?
Well,
The
what,
sheriff
Courtney,
in his response?
I have to agree with you, but it's not just for him, it's for everybody. If that had been my child, I'd have had some problems with that. I go back to what my mom taught me, and to me it's just basic common sense. It's the whole thing about you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. I don't know what their relationship is like. Certainly it sounds contentious. I probably would have chosen my words a little bit differently.
The sheriff, though, seems to relish his role as the hothead in county government.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily a hothead. What's happened is there have been all sorts of people, and John Weishin's a guy who's been taking pot shots at David Clark for the last 7 or 8 years. This is one that kind of struck close to home because it really is in the sheriff's bailiwick. I got to tell you, from a newsmaker perspective, I love David Clark.
Right.
I just absolutely do.
I get it that he's angry and he might be unfairly targeted in this, but then, I don't like it when people attack other people physically about, make comments about their physical appearance. That has nothing to do with what's going on.
And it kind of clouds what the issue really is. With all the facts that Jeff's given, it does sound like it's something valid. I may have a problem seeing that validity with the comments that were made.
So in other words, the comments overshadow the actual issue.
I think that's a risk when you get inflammatory like that. I just do.
All right, coming up next, an American tradition could be going away, why it is no longer the norm to send your kids to college.
More of What's Hot.
Again, we are joined by Rochelle Fritsch from MilwaukeeMoms.com and Jeff Wagner from News Radio 620 WTMJ. The high cost of college, skyrocketing student debt, means going away to college is now the exception. More than half of students will be living at home when the fall semester begins. Do you think more should be done to change this trend?
You know what? I think those are two different issues. So I think college costs are extreme, and I don't know what they're going to be like by the time my daughter goes to college. On the other hand, I think just the cost of college, kids cutting back, they're becoming economically aware in a way that I totally wasn't at that point, and it's not a necessity. I don't know if this is necessarily a bad trend.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rochelle. I think this is two separate issues. I'm on my soapbox all the time about the cost of education and why we throw a lot of kids into college who maybe should be in technical schools and things like that. So that's the one issue. As far as living at home, that's just the reality right now. I think the costs are going to affect the decision kids make, and there's nothing necessarily that's wrong with that. But the idea of going away to school and racking up $40,000, $50,000 a year in undergraduate debt and then coming out into this job market, well, you got to be more smart, about that. These loans are crippling.
If you can limit your debt, why not live at home? I don't think college students necessarily want that. No. Parents probably aren't a fan of it either. But if it works out in the end as far as limiting what you owe when you graduate, it's a good deal.
Sure.
Totally agree.
You done? Okay.
I'm done.
Let's go to our next topic. Some parents who can't afford to send their kids away to college are concerned about their daughters getting into the right sorority. So they are paying to send them to workshops that teach girls how to dress, act, and prepare paperwork for those sorority bids. Is this really necessary? Disclaimer here, I was in a sorority. I don't remember it being that complicated. You show up, you sit around, you talk, and That's it.
But see, this is just part of this larger trend. I mean, starting with really young kids nowadays. I mean, everybody's specialized in stuff. Whether it's the parents that are, giving the 6-year-olds the golf lessons or the gymnastics lessons. I mean, the special courses of study. This is just where we're heading. Now, I understand this one kind of sounds silly. It's like, okay, do people really need, charm lessons in this? But I guess if this is something that's important to you, it's just part of this overall trend. I think we see.
I think it's part of the whole competitive thing, like wanting your child to be the best, and I think it's kind of unhealthy. I mean, I would rather enrol my child in something that will help them for the future.
It's helicopter momming to the extreme.
Yeah, getting employment, etc. I don't really know how this helps you down the road in life.
Well, unless it's a thing where parents are, I'm just putting this out there, parents are trying to work their way through some stuff that they still haven't gotten over.
They never got into a sorority.
Seriously.
They were never that cheerleader, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So we're going to make sure that you don't go through what mom went through. It kind of makes me want to bang my head on a table. I mean, if you've got $5,000 or whatever laying around to get your child into the right clique,
right,
there's just something wrong with that.
But I'll bet you the same people that are sending the kids to these type of classes are also the same people that have been sending them to similar sort of stuff, like the charm school stuff, lessons and this and that and other thing, back again starting when they're 5 or 6 years old. So my guess is it just doesn't start at 18.
Well, of course not. But you know what I also think, too, as a mother, I hope I'm teaching, my husband and I are teaching our daughter enough life lessons at home that we don't have to send her someplace to know which fork she should be eating with and how to have a conversation. Right. Check your parenting, I guess.
Right, and all the gals at Phi Beta Kappa are going to love your daughter, I can tell. You don't need those classes, don't need those lessons, absolutely. Just like they all love Courtney. What was the sorority, Courtney?
Alpha Gamma Delta.
You got a cheer or anything for you?
No. Not one I can do on TV.
Alpha Gamma Delta.
We're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
Courtney's going to perform for us. We'll be right back.